Let's get down to brass tacks. Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, ready to rock with a very cool revisit. I'm here with our good friend, Rachel. Rachel, this was an idea that kind of came out of nowhere, and I love those type of ideas. And so
Yep.
tonight we're going to revisit Candyman from 2021, the 4 years later revisit. There it is. See,
There it is.
you'd think that you're a pro. You really are a pro. I love it. Okay. And I think this is going to be an interesting conversation. I know it will be for both of us because we both have a lot of connection to these movies and so forth. And when we kind of had our opportunity to talk about the original Candyman and its vibe, is it a slasher, is it not, what did it stand for, and what does it still stand for, and so forth. So if you guys did not hang out with us on our previous stream for Candyman, talking about the 92 classic, definitely check that out. And also make sure, if you're not subscribed to Rachel's channel, make sure you guys do that. And she did a fantastic video also deep diving on Candyman, which I loved. I watched it. I think I told you this. I watched it twice.
Thank you. That was awesome when I saw that comment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and let me just say, and I know you know this because as a content creator, we all have lives and so forth. But, I watched it the first time and I just had to let it absorb. But as soon as it was done, I was like, okay, that was amazing. I got to watch that again. But at first I let it absorb. And then I watched it again and I was just like, man, this was just really, really top-notch stuff. And I loved the insight. So anyways,
Thank you. That's
shout out to
awesome.
you.
Cheers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So real quick in the chat, just to catch up with people. Thank you for being here. If you haven't hit the like button, please do. We've got BTT, we've got Jack, we've got Super Tenor. Let's see. We've got Paula in the house. Hey, Paula, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Jack saying the film ruins the original tone of the first film. Really? That's interesting. Now, let me start off by saying this, and then Rachel, I guess we're going to jump into this.
Mhm.
Well, actually, before I say that, let me finish saying a couple of hellos here.
Yeah.
BTT, what's up? We've got Gore. What's up, Gore? Gore in the house. What's up, brother? Good to see you, man. All right. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm catching up with people a little bit before we start this because we're going to be going right on it. Melissa's in the house. Good to see you, Melissa. And we got Brandon. Hey, Brandon. Hope you're doing well. Good to have you here, man. Let's see. And okay, so let me start off by saying this. And we covered this when it first was coming out and so forth. So we did a lot of Candyman content So I'm kind of glad that we're able to kind of keep, I'm glad we can kind of come back to it and keep the conversation alive. Now, when I first saw this, I had mixed feelings, you know. There was a part of me that says, okay, there was some good stuff in it and there were some frustrating things that happened with it. And of course, I think that happens when you have expectations. For
Mhm.
me, this was a very important franchise in the sense, especially of the original one. So I kind of came in with that mindset. And again, this was 4 years ago too. I was also a bit younger as a content creator and so forth. So having those mixed feelings, I hadn't seen this film in a while. It probably had been close to 4 years, probably more like three and a half, three and a quarter. And I I've come to appreciate some other things that I didn't before. So let me pass it on to you first, just as a quick overall um, introduction to this film and your connection. What is that for you?
We all know I love the original, the '92 version, and as for the original 2 sequels, I'm not the biggest fan, so I actually haven't
Hmm.
seen sequels in a very long time, and when I first saw this one, I was pretty much just remembering the original movie, so my connection was, like, from the original to this, ignore those 2 in the middle. So I
Yeah.
remember when I first saw this, I actually did quite like it. I remember thinking it was different, it was fresh, but I also remember it took me a little bit of time, like, I had to kind of sit with the movie and kind of get used to it a little before the love for it started to grow with me. So, I remember when I first saw it, I remember thinking, "Yeah, I like it. It's good. DaCosta's got good direction. It makes some good points." But then when I started to rewatch it and I really started to pay attention to, like, what she was trying to say, what she had done with the legend of Candyman, the character of Anthony, and the social commentary that was built into it, and that's when I started to, like, really fall in love with the film, and when I was rewatching it just yesterday, to prepare for today, I couldn't tear my eyes away from the screen. I was having
Mm.
such a good time watching it, and the more I watch this, the more I really, really like it and really like what it does with the legend, with the story, and with the social commentary that was already there in the '92 movie, but I think
Yeah.
becomes much better in this movie, and I think for me personally, I think DaCosta managed to put the social commentary in such a way that it doesn't overtake the movie, it just adds to the movie, at least in
Hmm.
my opinion. So, yeah, so for me, it was like I started out liking it, not being that sure about it, being a little bit wary about some of the aspects to it, but then as I rewatched it, my appreciation and my love for it just really grew, and that was the point where I made that video that's on my channel because I just had to get it out, my love for this movie and what I thought it was doing so well. So
Hmm.
that's kind of been my journey with this movie.
Okay, very, very cool. And so it sounds kind of similar to mine, because
Mhm.
again, I was mixed on it. Like I remember coming out of the theater and I was like, and I was saying to Coriander, I was like, yeah, okay, that was all right. That was pretty good. And but it's like one of those, and I'm kind of thinking about it and trying to absorb it. And you were spot on with what you were saying. They tried, or what Nia DaCosta did was have those themes peppered in there, and doing it in a way that's very relevant to today. And I think that was part of it too for me. It's very powerful, you know, the way she did it, and it was painful. So I think for my personal emotion of the film, that's a little bit also where I was coming from. There was some painfulness in that, that kind of made me kind of, let me. I don't know. And also maybe even subconsciously, I don't know if I want to love this film,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes happens too, and we see that all the time, not just in horror. There are some people that just have those preconceived notions or maybe those expectations or what have you. So as I watched it twice since we talked about doing this stream tonight, so I watched it twice since last week, and I gotta agree with you. There was something I was like, okay, yes, I get what you were doing there. It was, I don't know, man. I guess to not rant about it, it's growing more on me. As far as, and I don't necessarily mean that. I appreciate it more because I appreciated it before, but I think those preconceived notions was maybe holding me back in a way. And now those things have been lowered. So, anyways, we're going to talk some more about it and specifically, and you guys in the chat, let us know what you think. We can't get to everyone tonight, but we will try to get to as many as we can. We got Jeff in the chat, continuing to hold up the wall of this community as much as he can. And thank you, thank you so much, Jeff. We appreciate gifting the membership. It really helps us out. Thank you so much, brother. Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. We got Mary in the house. What's going on? Good to see you, Mary. Hope you're doing well. We got Chaz in the chat. What's up, Chaz? Welcome, welcome. Saying new sub. Well, welcome. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Saying Candyman 2021 gets better every time I watch it. Okay, so there's another, and again, some movies are kind of like that. This is definitely, put it this way, I don't think this was an easy task. You know what I'm saying? I really, for Nia and everyone else involved. Yeah. Yep. Let's see. BTT saying, I think a lot of people were confused with the Sherman version of Candyman, thinking he was replacing Tony Todd, but he wasn't. Absolutely. Rachel, what do you think about that? This whole idea that they introduced to the mythology of the hive and how that worked. I personally thought that was interesting, and it made sense with the choice that they made, and it also it I guess in a way made it more powerful, this whole idea of Candyman or the Candymen. What did you think of that?
This was one angle that I really liked from the movie from the first watch, was this idea that Candyman has either grown or has always been part of this hive of, black men who have died in horrific ways, because when we hear Daniel Robitaille's story in the first movie, it is horrifying. It is really truly horrifying. And so I really love this idea of Candyman becoming this hive of oppressed black men, and the way the social commentary is worked in because of that. And of course, as we see Anthony descend more and more into the madness of Candyman, and we start to see it reflected in his painting, like the possession is coming out of him. I just think it was
Hmm.
such a great way to grow the urban legend, to make it different, but
Yeah.
to make it so that that difference could still include Daniel Robitaille. Like, I love that scene where Burke is telling Anthony about who his Candyman was, because his Candyman was the one that we see at the beginning of the film. But then he talks about how Helen came looking for Daniel, who was the original Candyman, or at least the first
Right.
one that this legend grew from. And I just
Right.
think that that angle of the film is so good, because it works with the urban legend angle, but it also works for a more modern audience to have this hive and to have this commentary on what the world is like for black people and for black men in particularly. And I loved that thread. And we'll talk about obviously the look of this film later, but the shadow puppets in
Yeah.
this film are one of the most beautiful aspects, and the way they use those and utilize them to show the horror, so that we don't
Hmm.
have to, because like you said, this sort of subject matter, it can get uncomfortable, it can make for very uncomfortable viewing. So I think the way they handled this subject matter was done in such a way that we could still watch it without feeling like our skin crawling off, so it was a
Right.
really really good way to do it.
Right. Yeah, I agree absolutely with that. It was done in a way where it's there, it's
Mhm.
presented, it's not shied away from, but it's not the only thing in the focus of the film. You've got all these
Mhm.
other little things, and specifically what I thought was fantastic is with the opening, and once again, this story, this urban legend, and we see the young
Mhm.
William and Sherman. Look, man, I'm gonna tell you what, and I've got some images, of course. These are places that I know of,
Yeah.
growing up. Okay, so like it immediately was like, ooh, okay, all right, and you do have those laundry areas all the way in the freaking bowels of hell, and it's creepy just alone. But what was cool about this movie, and it's hard to see it in this image, but you saw that reflection of Sherman first. Like there were some moments where Nia
Mhm.
was putting, you got to pay attention, in other words.
Yes.
First
Mhm.
time you watch it, you're going to miss so much. And it made me think about how this film is you know, you got the possession angle of sorts with Anthony, as we'll get to, but it's like a ghost story. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And it
Mhm.
was amazing in the beginning as we're meeting, you know, our players, you know, our actors in this film, and we've got a full blown, you want to hear a ghost story? And I was
Yeah.
like, bro, do people do that anymore?
I know. It was such a nice little callback, wasn't it, to, like, the whole
Yeah.
campfire, sitting around the campfire telling ghost stories, and I loved when he turns all the lights off and they're all just like, "Oh, come on." But it's like, "No,
Yes.
dude, you need the atmosphere. This bro knows what's going on."
Yes. Yes. Like they were kind of like the average, you know, folks and mindset, you know, whereas people
Yeah.
like us that are so big into horror, we're like, yeah, yeah,
Yes!
let's hear this story. So I thought that was fantastic. I thought that this whole idea of how they position Anthony, played by Yahya Abdul Mateen II, first of all, and I thought he was very, very captivating,
Mhm.
very,
Yes.
very a stoic type of charisma, you know, and he has that in his other projects as well. But this whole idea of the ghost story, and then they talk about the first film, and I was like, yes, okay. And but it made, you know how some films, and we all love franchises, we all love franchises, especially the classics. But you know how sometimes when a sequel does a callback, it's just a callback, you know, and it's
It's
like, you know, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I'm telling you about what happened, you know, 2 years ago, the Woodsboro murders and this, and that. And that's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool. But with this, it's an urban legend now. Now
Mhm.
Helen is the urban legend that she was studying in the 92 film. And I thought that was, it was kind of cool because now it's like, you know, that feeling within the actual movie, and it works for itself. And I love that. And of course, just like any urban legend, it's twisted. You
Yeah.
know, she went on a rampage, she's killing people, and I'm like, no, Helen didn't. Don't mess with my Helen. What did you think of this opening and how the legend of Helen Lyle was twisted and now became its own nightmare?
No, look, I love Helen. I love my girl, and like part of me is like, don't do her dirty. But by the same token, I loved this sequence. Okay,
Yeah,
again, the puppetry, brilliant. I love Helen with her long legs and her creepy little hands going after the
yeah,
baby. It's like it looks so cool. But what I
yeah,
really loved about this was the fact that, like you said, the legend has become twisted. Helen isn't remembered as some big hero who saved Cabrini Green. She's remembered as
right.
this horrific woman who came into this community and tore it apart. And I say this in my video, but what I really love about this is, look, I love the original Candyman. There's no doubt about
Mhm.
that. One of my favorite horror films, but there's no denying that the end of it is a little white saviory. We do have this white woman going into this black community to save the baby and save the community. So what I thought that this was doing, I felt like it was almost poking fun at that kind of angle, like saying, "Oh, no, no, no,
Mhm.
we're not going to let her become like some paragon white savior for our community. We're going to turn her into the boogeyman." And I thought that was such a great way of, like I said, subverting what we saw at the end of the first movie while still
Mhm.
keeping Helen's story alive. It ties in a little bit to the
Yes.
fact that she pops up at the end, with Trevor. So it shows that she might still be alive somewhere within the Candyman universe. And obviously, we know that the original plan was to have Virginia Madsen come back, which would have been
Y
amazing.
yes.
That could have been
Yes.
really interesting, that angle. But I do like that we managed to get a little bit of Helen, and we do hear her voice. They did get Virginia Madsen to
Yes.
record that voiceover that we hear, so at least we get, a little bit of her. But no, I think that first opening, that twisted. Oh yes, I've heard about this scene where she's supposed to
Yes.
be. Yeah, that's
Doesn't it give you
crazy.
chills, man?
It really does. Like, even just seeing this still, she looks like a zombie woman, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Anthony, back away, back away."
Yeah.
Um, but no, I think that first that little bit where we get, like, Helen's backstory, it was perfect, and it just, like I said, it worked so well into the ongoing theme of urban legends that we have throughout this entire franchise, and showing how urban legends become twisted and they change and they have different variations. Because we all heard variations of the Hookman or Bloody Mary, but everyone heard a slightly different version. And so I like
Mhm.
that this story shows us. And also, can I just say how much I love the brother, Troy? He is
He
brilliant. He is so over
hilarious.
the top and he is
Yeah.
hilarious. And I love
Yes.
him. So
Yeah,
good.
yeah. No, the characters, the thing that I liked about it, and I would say it even did a better job than even the original, was that they gave you these
Mhm.
characters and they gave you enough of them so they felt more three-dimensional. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? And I
yes.
thought that that
Mhm.
was, first of all, it was intentionally done, and I think they were fairly successful at it. And especially, like with him being the brother, he's definitely a side character, but you got enough of his character and you had enough moments where you, like I said, he was much more of a three-dimensional character.
Yes.
Real
Yeah.
quick, in the chat, I just want to catch up with these guys for a second. We got Julie, who's got Rachel's link in the chat, so check that out, please, please, please. Our brother Jeff saying, "Man, I don't mind gifting because everyone in this community, it's great to be around." Thank you so much, man. Seriously. We really appreciate it. We got Kenny in the house. Candyman is just kind of boring. Okay. All right.
Okay. Not for everyone.
Very, very
That's
interesting.
fine.
Um, and we got and Gore's like, you think that of the OG? I know. It's like, here's the thing though, guys. Let me just say this. I mean, and everyone loves what they love. Some people they love gore in their horror, and that's all that they love. And some people don't love gore, and some people love, things that are much more supernatural, and some people love things that are grounded in reality, and that's perfectly fine. But I think that for me, I'm just, and you guys should know this already. For me, I just have that variety where, I can watch something like a Terrifier 3 and be like having a party, and then I could flip it and watch something that is super grounded with barely any, blood or gore, like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it was like, yeah, that was great because my mind was making it super intense. So interesting stuff. But Jeff coming in with a super chat, $5 super chat. Thank you so much, man. Say I never seen the remake, or I guess is this considered a remake or reboot? I saw the original, so you both recommend. I'll give it a shot. Yeah, I mean they call this like a spiritual sequel, and I understand why they say it like that. Of course, some of these terms are a little bit like hokey, but yeah, it's definitely following after the 92 film. So I think that if you enjoyed the 92 film, definitely give this a watch. It's probably going to be the type of film, I know it was for me, it was for Rachel, and I think someone else, I read a comment where someone else said it too. It's the type of film that you need to watch it more than once because there's like all these little details. And some people don't like that. They're like, man, I got to be able to get it in the first 2 seconds that I turn the movie on. That's fine. But I do appreciate films where like I've got to let it absorb, and then when I watch it that second or third time, I'm like, oh crap, maybe this whole thing is speaking to me in a different way. So but check it out, Jeff. Definitely check it out. Let's do a clip for Jeff, just to thank him. And Rachel, sometimes when you get really, really frustrated, you just gotta let it out, and it might look like this.
Fuck this cowboy shit! We're fine! You fucking hold dunk, po dunk, well then there, motherfuckers!
There it is. You gotta love some Billy Zane. Okay.
Same.
Um
Love him.
yeah. Kenny saying the OG is better, but still boring. Oh, that is too bad, man. I think the original is such a good film. It really is. Gore is saying to each their own. Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone, it's interesting how some people, you can have these different perspectives. You know what I'm saying? BTT saying one of the cool things about this 2021 sequel, you got to pay attention to all of the reflective surfaces in every scene. Every other scene has Candyman in it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
he pops up a lot. Mhm.
He does. And Gore saying it's a slow burn for
Yes.
sure. It is, and
Mhm. Definitely.
some people, they don't like slow burns, and that's perfectly fine. Kenny saying it's a cool concept, though. I think so too. I mean, listen, here's the thing, guys, and all of us as horror movie fans, we say it all the time. We want some different things. We want some new things. We've seen it all done before, and it's very true. And I do think, there are films out there even right now that I think I was saying this last night too. Keep an open mind, especially to new horror or new
Yes.
things, because there's stuff out there that does need support so that it can grow and become a classic someday. And I will say with this film, it did take a different approach. And I think that's also what kind of got me um off kilter at first,
Yeah.
because I was kind of expecting certain things. Um and like Brandon was saying, it was innovative, but it was very atmospheric.
Yeah.
Like it was the atmosphere that
Mhm.
carried it so much in this film. Let's go back to a couple of other points here. As Anthony is starting to um, study this legend of Helen Lyle, it is all tied to his art, because he needs this inspiration. And again, great stuff. The fugitive. Helen
Fugitive.
he was a fugitive, evil. And, to your point that you made a few minutes ago, saying, no, we're going to turn, her into the villain. And I think that also speaks to Daniel because he became known as a villain, but he wasn't a
Yes.
villain in real
No,
life.
he was a horrific victim.
He was a
Yeah,
horrific
and
victim.
as we
So,
see, all the Candymen are. Like, really, they're all
yes,
victims that get twisted by this legend or whatever it is that's turning them into these creatures, and so, yeah, why would Helen be exempt? It makes sense that she,
right.
too, become this twisted legend, so I actually think that's
Yes.
really cool. Mm.
Absolutely. So it was like, in other words, it's cool because it's continuing what we saw from the 92 film and pushing it into this urban legend atmosphere. And I love that. Him doing his research, I thought it was some really cool stuff. And you could kind of see the through lines with him and what Helen was in the original film.
Mm.
And, when I first saw this movie, and obviously, guys, we're getting into spoilers, but as I was watching this movie, I was just like, dude, don't investigate. Don't investigate, And but anyway, so Anthony meets William, played by Coleman Domingo, who I think is a fantastic actor. I really, really enjoy him. And so we start to get this whole idea of the Candyman. And William was saying, he said, for me, Candyman was Sherman. You know what I mean? And it was like, okay, all right, this is really, it was cool. I was digging it. What did you think of that? As and I know we touched upon it, this idea of the candy men, but I thought that was such a cool idea. I really did.
No, I really liked it, and I really like this character. I actually thought at first, my first thought was, "Is this the kid? Is this like the kid from the original grown up?" That was my first thought
Yeah.
of who he was. But no, because I remember when I first saw this, and he actually said, "My Candyman was this." That was when I was like, "Oh, okay, we're going somewhere different with this." And then it was like, so now the opening scene makes more sense, and it links to that, and we get some more context. Because I remember when I first watched this movie and the opening scene happened, I was like, okay, so is this a new Candyman? Are we just having a flashback to show police brutality? Like, what's the through line here? So when we got to meet
Hmm.
Burke and we got that backstory, no, I thought that was really good. I think Burke in particular is a very interesting character, and obviously, as we talk about more of the film, we'll talk more about his role. But
Hmm.
I thought that his scene was really great because it worked well to give us some really good exposition without feeling like an exposition dump.
Hmm.
Anthony is deliberately trying to find this information. He's trying to poke around Cabrini Green. And so, of course, he's going to talk to people and he's going to want to take notes and everything. And look, I was exactly the same as you. When he's going to Cabrini Green, I was like, dude, look what happened.
Hmm.
Okay, just stay away, man. Stay
Yeah.
away. Like, don't don't
Yeah.
don't be going poking around places that you don't want to know what's going to happen. But no,
It's
I
so
thought that
true.
whole that link between Burke and the opening and, then leading into the new Candyman legend, I thought that was, yeah, that was really well done.
Yeah. I mean, here's the other thing too, and I'm gonna be all over the place, guys. So you just have to you just have to deal with it. Because like Peyton was saying, this is one that I wanted to like and just didn't. A revisit may change that, but not counting on it. And we
Okay,
got
fair
Gore
enough.
saying I didn't. Yeah, it's fair enough. Gore saying I didn't expect to like this one. I liked the OG so much, and I'm not big on remakes, but this one surprised me a bit. And see, that's the thing too, is that it was continuing the story, which I think the marketing for it, I think, um, let it down a little bit in a way,
Mm,
because people really, and I remember when we were covering this, 4 years ago, everyone was confused on it. Is it a reboot? Is it a remake? Is it a sequel? What is it? And I'm just saying the way I look at it, and Rachel, correct me if if I'm wrong, but I look at it as a sequel. I
I do
look at
too.
it I
Yeah,
look at it as a
absolutely.
sequel to the 1992 Candyman, like straight
Mhm.
up.
Yeah,
I
me
mean,
too.
they literally talk about Helen, so
Yeah.
it's a
Uh-huh.
sequel. You know,
Yes.
and I think the confusion about that did the movie a disservice. So I blame
Yeah.
that on the marketing. And Jack, in the chat, I'm not sure if you can put the link or not, but you can put your Instagram in there, and then people can like get it that way for the link. We got Jack's movie, which we had the pleasure, Steve, my good buddy Steven, and I have our moment in it, which is really cool. Paranoid Tapes. So Jack, put your link into your Instagram if you can't put the link, the actual link. Okay. Um, but this whole idea of him talking about Sherman, and again, it's creepy as hell, man. It's creepy as
Oh,
hell.
yeah.
And as
Mhm.
I was watching it these two times in the last week, I'm telling you, man, I was like, okay, I see what they were doing. And the point I was trying to make was they could have done it like a regular quote unquote sequel, where they reference the first film, maybe even they have Daniel, or Tony Todd come back or do some killing and this and that. Oh, you're back. You never died and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that wouldn't have been cool. Rest in peace to Tony Todd. I'm always up for some Tony Todd. But I think the choice that they made to do it this way was a fresh way to do a sequel, a legacy
Mhm.
sequel. Um, and it had the creep factor. The dude's coming out of the wall. Okay. If I was a little
Creepy and
kid,
smiling and offering his
yes,
candy. I'd be like, "Dude, get the fuck out of here."
yes.
No.
I'm like, it is really, really creepy as hell, man.
Mhm.
Um, we got Ben in the house saying, "I thought the Candyman reboot." See, it's a sequel, bro.
Sequel.
I love you, Ben. So it was pretty cool. I have to revisit it to see if it holds up. Gore saying sequel. Yeah, it's a sequel, man. It really is. Yeah. We got Gina in the house. Jeff saying I'm that same way. I like all kinds of horror slashers, poltergeist, slow burn, supernatural, whatever. I like it all. Yeah, I just think that there's so much good stuff, man. There is
Mhm.
so much good stuff. We got Scott in the house dropping by. Thank you so much, man. Hope that you enjoy your night and see you soon. We got May in the house. All right. What's up, May? Let's see. We're at 30 likes. It's very cool, guys. Thank you so much. And again, if you haven't hit the like button, please do. All right. We got Gene in the house. What's up, Gene? Good to see you. All right. And thanks, May. We got Jack's Instagram right there, so definitely follow our boy Jack, and he'll let you know about Paranoia Tapes and everything involved with it. We had our stream on it a couple weeks ago for the Super Bowl, which was awesome. So check that out if you haven't. Um, BTT said when Anthony was messing around with Brianna and called Candyman 5 times, you see him behind Anthony. Yes, in the reflection. It was creepy stuff, man. It was creepy stuff, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And this whole idea of Sherman as the Candyman, from the 70s, 1977 Cabrini Green. I thought that was great. I thought that was great. And you knew bad stuff was going to happen. But let's get to the art exhibit, which I thought was another really cool scene. What did you think of that? And this whole idea that Anthony came up with the mirror, and his way of interpreting the legend.
First of all, dude, you are playing with fire here. Like, what are you
Yes,
doing? Like, let's put the Candyman legend up for everyone to see. And as we see over the movie, like, this does end up spreading out. So that's very
yes,
interesting. Look, I love the idea of Anthony being an artist. I think it's a great reflection of Daniel Robitaille being an artist,
yes,
so you've got that. And I think that is
yes.
just a beautiful, like, full circle. I also
Hmm.
think that Anthony, he's someone that a lot of artists, whether you paint or you write or whatever, a lot of people can relate to having artist block, to not being able to produce something. I mean, we know as content creators how hard it can be to, sometimes to get inspiration, to get something new, to do something different. And I think
Yep,
that Anthony in particular, I think this is again maybe a commentary on art and on how art reflects real life, because we are living in an age where times are crazy and there's lots of insane things happening in the world, and art is always a way to reflect that. And I think it's a great commentary on like even Brianna's like, it's a little bit on the nose, like it doesn't
Yep.
leave a lot of room for interpretation. And a lot of people are commenting on that, like, oh, this snooty art dealer chick who looks very similar to Virginia Madsen, by the way. Does anyone
Yeah.
ever, yeah, like you look at this chick and you're like, huh, okay. Maybe that's supposed to be a little physical call out, but like she pissed me off so badly with
She
her
did.
condescension and her little
Yeah.
comment on, oh, well, you people. It's like, what people? Oh, artists. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think so, buddy. But she does make a good point. It's like art is, you're supposed to be able to have some room for interpretation. But by the same token, I kind of think, and Anthony kind of makes this point, we live in a world where subtlety seems to go over people's heads. Sometimes you have to make the broad statement. Sometimes you have to draw the picture that is
Mhm.
just bloody hands over a face. Sometimes people need to be hit with that extremeness. So I actually really like that the film takes a little bit of time to explore that and to explore what it means to be an artist trying to send a message, and at what point does your message become too in your face to the point that you start to lose people. Because if we look at you get to see some of Anthony's old art, and his old art definitely has a social commentary running through it, when you see some
Mhm.
of his older stuff. So I do love seeing that struggle with him of trying to get his message across, but trying to figure out how to get it across in such a way that it's not smacking you in the face and he's making the point that he wants to make. I also really like when he first shows it to Brianna, and at first she's like, okay, dude, it's a little bit, on the nose. But then he starts talking about how
Yeah.
he feels really connected to it and passionate about it. And she's like, oh, well, okay, baby, if that's what you want, then go for it. Like she's very much understands the process and understands that if an artist can really connect with something, it then
Mhm.
brings out, that inspiration and that talent and everything. So I think
Yeah.
that aspect of Anthony was really, really interesting. I really liked it. What about
I
you?
Yeah, I agree, and like you said, the through lines to Daniel, I thought was fantastic,
Mm. Yeah.
because he's literally an artist,
Mhm.
just like Daniel was, and of course that led to Daniel's death, and this is kind of it's a mirror image, it's a reflection, and I thought so. I guess what I'm saying is this: all these things in this movie that it's doing, and then you got
Mhm.
that other level like this, where okay, he's an artist too. That was cool. Like I guess what I'm saying is, you can tell that they put a lot of thought into this film, and they
Mhm.
really tried to have that complexity to the story. And again, when you're talking about horror, and of course, and again, last week I don't know if we got to the bottom of it, whether Candyman 92 is a slasher or not, but it's definitely got its people, its fans that look at it as such, or at least Candyman himself as a slasher icon. So, you're having this sequel come out, and they were still able to have that sophistication in it. And I thought that that
Yes.
was some
Mhm.
really, really cool, um, have to get credit for,
Mhm.
So, real quick in the chat, let me just jump here for a moment too. BTT saying Sherman was a good dude, awkward, mentally slow, but innocent. He was unjustly killed and became a demon. Hate breeds hate. Absolutely. And I think that
Mhm.
that was the bottom line of this is just, in
Yes.
other words, we always heard about what happened to Daniel. We heard
Mhm.
the story, and of course, in the sequels, they did touch upon it more. But if we just think about the '92 film, and then we go to this, so Sherman, we were able to see it, live, so to speak. We saw what happened to Sherman, and we saw what he
Mhm.
became, and so forth. So I thought that that was really, really interesting, and it was cool.
Mm.
Gore, Gore loves your accent. He says, "I wish I had her accent." She does have a great accent.
Thank you.
And look, you know, we got our man Brandon was asking about would I ever do a why you hate on this. And look, all I can say is stay tuned. That's all I can say. Um, that's all I'm gonna say. But you know, May is really quick on the swing, and we definitely would love you guys if you get a chance. Check out my latest "Why You Hate" that was just dropped earlier today. We go to Crystal Lake, of course, and I had some fun with this one with part two. "Why You Hate Friday 13th" part two. So please, guys, check that out. I would absolutely love to have all of you check it out and leave 1,000 comments. That would be great. It helps us out. We got Nanette is in the chat. Hey, Nanette, good to see you. Long time no see. All right. Hope you're doing well. Very, very cool to have you here. Um, let's see. Who else? We got N Ready in the house. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And Annette's doing good. Very cool. Ty in the house. All right. So listen, let's go into, and hey, Nanette, let's go into, Gore says, I can't think of any reason to hate Friday Part 2. Check out the video, bro. You're gonna, you will see. But of course, the whole series is about things that, not only my opinions, but things I might have heard from other people and so forth over the years. So let's go to the scene after the art exhibit. And again, this whole concept of Sherman, of Candyman in the reflection. Now, in the theaters, when I first saw this, of course, I was thinking, man, that's innovative. That's cool. I think I'm digging this. What are your thoughts? Maybe what were your thoughts when you first saw it? And what are your thoughts now about how they showed, the Candyman in the reflection doing the killings and so forth?
When I first saw this scene, and like the her kill is so quick. It's like it happens and you're with the guy like, is this real? Is this real? Is this happening? Like it's so quick. And what I actually really loved this evolution of the legend, because we know in the original 92 one, most people didn't see Candyman unless he wanted them to. Like Helen always saw him, but as we saw with
Yeah.
the tapes in the asylum, other people wouldn't see him if he didn't want them to. So I love
Right.
this idea that, that you don't see him in this one except in the mirror, because it adds to that legend of summoning him in the mirror. And I think it also leads to some fantastic kill scenes. Now, we had this whole back and forth last week on whether the original was a slasher, and I don't think it is. However, I think this one could definitely be classed as a slasher, because I think the kills in this are so well done. Because I love that DaCosta, she doesn't show you everything. She pulls away, or she shows you from the mirror, or that beautiful scene where she pulls out of the apartment building when the
Yes.
art critic dies. And I also think in these scenes and the later on scene with the girls at the high school in particular, the sound design for these scenes is so good, because again, because you're not seeing anything, you're just hearing the squelch, the rip, the crack. And I just think that was done so well. And like this shot that you've got here in particular, like that is such a creepy shot. It's such an eerie, so creepy, because he's there and you can't see him, but you know that his presence in there. It creates that feeling that the first one has, that Candyman is always lurking, he's always ready to strike. And I love the end of this scene, how they go in for the kill on the main dude, and then it cuts away, and then we see Brianna discovering the bodies, and that's when we see the carnage. And I just think
Yeah.
DaCosta does that so well, and she films these scenes so cleverly that you get the full impact without having to go for like the full blood and guts, which, I don't mind a good splatter movie, but I love when directors find creative ways to show these horrific kills that is a little bit different. So I think that scene and most of the kill scenes in this movie are really fantastic. And yeah, the sound design is just A+ for them.
Yeah, man. I mean, I agree with all of that. It's just like, man, I'm just telling you, it's crazy stuff. And when I first saw it, I was like, man, this whole reflection thing is really cool. Ty saying, I agree. I like the lore expansion, and I love the mirror stuff. Yeah. This movie needs an action-packed sequel. I definitely would love to see it. It's set up. Well, the whole mythology of Candyman was always, anytime you have a supernatural character, you always have the possibilities. But what this movie did, and I thought, okay, so all right, I don't want to jump ahead too much, because I want to get to the direct connection to the 92 film and Tony specifically. So remind me about that. I want to save that, because obviously there's some stuff that happens before that. So let's jump forward a little bit. So Anthony's still doing the research now. Granted, I want to also give a shout out, because we know that originally they were going to have the Helen Lyle character in the film. We saw the still. I showed it earlier. I'll show it again. It was in the trailer, and I remember seeing the quick glimpse of it. I was like, "Oh my God, Virginia Madsen! Is she going to be in it?" And I was just like so excited. And again, expectation, right? And it's like, And I'm not saying the expectation is, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. It kind of is what it is. But that's what my whole thought process was. Is like, okay, they're gonna have Helen in it. We got to have Tony in it, and blah blah blah. So in this scene that I was showing, he's still doing his research. That there was actually the scene that was setting up her audio tape, where Virginia actually did the audio for it and so forth. And the other thing too that I want to throw out, this is the actress that was playing Helen Lyle, so the original idea, and I'm not going to get too deep into it right now, and if you understand YouTube, you'll understand why. I'm not going to talk about it too much now in this content, but originally the idea was for Helen to be the villain, or at least the main villain, so to speak. Like Anthony was going to summon Helen, and she was going to be, basically doing Candyman type shit. Now, yes, that would have been very interesting, and I think they decided to go in this direction instead. And I think part of the reason why they did, and again, I just want to touch upon it lightly, is because they were opening up this whole mythology, this whole world, this whole idea of the hive. And hindsight always being 2020, I dug that. I'm like, okay, now we can go anywhere if we want. We can do anything now with this franchise. It can live on with 1,000 different actors if we want it to. What do you think of that, Rachel? I mean,
Yeah. I was similar. Sorry, I cut you off.
No,
Did
no,
you
no.
have something else? Okay.
No.
Yeah, I was the same. Like, I was like, oh, Helen would have been so great, especially because, like, I love, like, the ending of the original Candyman, like that scene where Trevor accidentally summons her. And then, like we talked about last week, how you get that implication that it's going to go on with Stacy finding the body. And when they were like saying, oh, Virginia Madsen is in talks, I was like, oh my God, yes,
Yeah.
it's going to be so great. And then similarly, I was a little bit disappointed when we didn't get her. But again, in retrospect, I actually think that the direction that they took the film works better than I think Helen would have. Like, I think we all would have loved to see Helen back, and if they'd done it right, it would have been really fun. But like you said, having it go this way, we've opened the legend up. It can literally go anywhere now, and it just leaves that room to experiment. And hell, we could still bring Helen back at some point in time. They even,
Of course.
leave that open. So I was very similar. I was disappointed at first, and when I saw the movie, and I was like, yeah, okay, it's still good. But then as I've watched it over time and thought more about like what they've tried to do, and watched the behind the scenes with like DaCosta talking about what her aim was with the film, and I really think that what they ended up with was really, really good, and unexpectedly became like a really fantastic groundwork for the series to move forward. So I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And BTT saying, I need another sequel. I want to see Anthony's legend grow. Anthony's Candyman is more of an avenging version of Candyman. Yeah, and I thought that was cool too, because it showed that they were all different. You know what I mean? And I mean, if you think about it, and of course we'll get into that as well, what they're able to do, or how they operate, so to speak, is different. And I thought that was cool too, which really opened my mind. I was like, okay, I see what you guys are trying to do. Our buddy Eric in the house, what's up, man? Saying, I wasn't a fan of changing the lore and multiple Candymans or men. Yeah, but I will say this. I think it was more expanding it. I mean, yes, it was a change. I guess, the definition of it is a change. But I looked at it more that it was an expansion, and really opening it up. And, to be quite honest, and I didn't know that I would go here, but, look at Elm Street for a second, okay? And we've talked a lot of Elm Street in recent weeks, months. We just did our Elm Street ranking. If you haven't seen that, check it out, please. But look at where we're at right now with the franchise. We're stuck. We're stuck with legal stuff, but probably even worse than that. And you guys let me know what you think. Even worse than that, we're stuck with, what do we do without Robert? What do we do without Robert? And I think that that's going to be a huge obstacle to get through, or to get over. This film, and I don't know if this is part of the reason, or I should say on this live stream, I'm not going to say if I know, but they might have been thinking long term in the sense
Yes.
of, how do we continue this character,
Mhm.
these movies, these stories, and honor Tony Todd, but yet we're not tied down to Tony Todd. Okay? So I'm just gonna say it. There it is right there. Because we're literally in that scenario with Elm Street.
Yes,
We're
we are,
literally in
unfortunately. I
we
I
are.
agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that was a possible thought, or just as a fan, the way that you look at it?
No, I think you're right. I think they may have been thinking like, what can we take this further? Do we like expand the law so that we have that opportunity to make Candyman be whoever we are, whoever we want him to be?
Mm,
And like you said, so that we don't end up with like it has to be Tony Todd. Like obviously you're gonna have your purists who are like, yes, it has to be Tony Todd. And I totally
right,
get that. But
right.
I'm with you. Like I think that there probably was a bit of a through line in thinking, yes, we can expand this law and we can make it so that we don't get tied to this one actor who, of course, is brilliant, but is going to want to go on and do things, and obviously is not with us. Sadly, not with us anymore. So no,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that probably was a bit of a through line, and I think it really worked in the movie as well.
Yeah, I think that, and the other thing too, this type of story, this whole idea of the hive, this might have been one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because now, again, you can have as many as you want. There's a reason that they're there, and it still all ties back to Daniel, to Tony Todd's Candyman,
Hmm.
like they said in the movie. So he's still the king,
Yes, he is. He
right?
is.
But they showed how his infection, how it worked, and it created all these other men. And so, anyways, I just think that that's really, look, man. I'm just saying, and I know as well. We've watched a lot of legacy sequels struggle with
Hmm.
continuing the story in a fresh
Yes.
way that
Hmm.
makes sense and also has some innovation. This is a great way that they decided to do it. I think, I really think so. Now, the other thing I wanted to say, and I know how you said that you could look at this as a slasher, and I think of it as, it definitely has a few of those elements, but I gotta admit, man, for some reason, I think of it a little bit more as, it's got the body horror, of course, but possession, again, this
Yes.
idea of a ghost story because he's being
Mm.
haunted. And this scene captivates that so much. I love it how, this lady is still, kind of being snooty, but now she's sucking up to him. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, you didn't think that before, and it's like he was smart. And I love that too. Anthony was a very intelligent person and an intelligent character, and that was really cool to see as well. And this scene that you were talking about coming up, first of all, when he sees the reflection, seeing Sherman as himself, I thought that was just great stuff. It looks so good. This film, it looks money. It's beautiful.
It's
It's shot well.
beautiful, this
it
film.
it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
And
It
there's that shot. Okay,
Oh,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
beautiful shot. Oh, no, I was just gonna say, almost every frame of this film is like a painting. It's
Yes.
beautiful, it's gorgeous, and I love that the colors are like they're candy-like. They're like candy colors, so it's almost like, a reflection of the sweets that Sherman has at the beginning, and then
Yes.
I love how at the end of the film, when we get to that climactic scene, all the color is just leached right out of the film, and we go back to that dingy, dirty Cabrini green setting to show that, okay, shit's about to hit the fan. Now we're getting
Yes.
real. And I love that look. So I think that DaCosta, like her with her cinematography and her direction and whoever her cinematographer was, absolutely stunning film. Like I was watching it last night and I'm like, every single frame, I could freeze this and frame it and make it a picture on my wall. It just is that beautiful looking. Mm.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And we got Strange Monkey in the house. What's up?
Hey.
Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. Saying, hey guys, I'm heading into work. Dropping in to say hello. I absolutely loved this Candyman film. It was one of the most unique legacy sequels. It definitely was unique, man. I totally agree.
Mhm.
Good to see you, man, and hope you're doing well. Let's see. And Eric saying, I just didn't like going from Daniel Robitaille to multiple people as Candyman, that opinion could change in the future, but just not at the moment. Yeah, and I don't know if you're here in the beginning of the stream, Eric. I was saying, similar things. When I first saw it, I really had mixed feelings about that, and actually I'm going to tease it right now, and I'm going to tell Rachel about this when we end the stream, but I have something I want to talk about that we might do next week that is literally tied into this comment and what I just said. So,
Intrigue.
yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that for next week, hopefully. Mayan says we're at 36 likes. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you so much, May. I appreciate that. And again, if you guys haven't hit the like button, please do. And I just want to make sure I'm caught up to everyone. Let's see. And Julie, good to have you here. So listen, this scene and how it was shot, when I saw it in the theater, I was like, oh man, that was really, you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention because that kill, it was gnarly. It was super gnarly. But as the film continued and seeing Anthony just become, I mean, Anthony was pulling a Seth Brundle. Okay. He's literally like decomposing
There is that
physically.
one scene that really reminded me of The Fly when he's like pulling something
Yeah.
out of his head. I'm like, oh my God, we're in Jeff Goldblum territory now.
Yeah, we are. And it was good to see the physical and mental, he was just devolving, man. But as we continue and they talk about Daniel, and again, I really think they honored the character of Daniel very well in this film, and of course this is through William, so it's an obsession he has, but you can understand that he saw Sherman as a kid coming out of the
Absolutely.
wall,
Yep.
and then of course
Yeah.
he was brutally murdered, and William was like 3 steps away from where that happened,
Yeah.
so it makes sense for him to be totally consumed about this story as it's consuming Anthony, and Brianna is taking a look at this and like, what the hell is going on? She doesn't understand it. She has no clue what's going on. She's like, what are you doing, buddy? This scene in the bathroom, another great scene. Stupid kids,
Yep.
but I loved it.
Yep.
What did you think of this scene?
Oh, I love this scene. Like, first of all, I love that it shows that, like I said earlier with Anthony's artwork, it's like, man, what are you doing? People are going to come and see this, and then they're
Yeah,
going to go off and they're going to say Candyman, and that is on you, buddy. But yeah,
right.
this is exactly the kind of stupid crap I would have done in high school, okay? Like, 100%. I would have been like, yeah, girls, come on, let's go summon Candyman. Because,
Yeah.
we're all stupid when we're that young. But no, this scene again, like it's similar to the scene where the art critic dies. I think that the fact that DaCosta films this violence without actually showing it to you, like when the girls go to walk out and you start hearing like this crunching sound and like this ripping sound, and like you're like, what is actually happening? And again, I think the sound editing for this movie is so good. And then the
Yeah.
poor girl leans down under the stool and just sees that fountain of blood just come,
Yeah.
cascading down. That shot in particular, the one that you've got up right here, I love this shot. I think it's such, again, using the mirror, using the legend of the mirror, showing that you're only going to see him. The way this dude floats, he's
Yes.
floating, man. Like
That's creepy.
when people start floating, that's when you leave the building, okay?
Yeah,
Like
you
levitating
do.
is never good.
That's right.
That is always a bad sign. So no, I
So
think
true.
this scene so good, so well filmed. Like I said, the sound effects. I love that poor
Yeah.
girl who's in the stall, just hearing all the horror happening around her. And
Mhm.
I'm just going to jump back quickly, but that was another thing I love in the scene where the art critic dies, when they pull out on that building and you just see all the other people in their apartments just going about their evening while this woman is
Mhm.
being brutally murdered. And it's that kind of feel of like you're so close to danger and you just don't know it. And again,
Right.
it brings in that feel of Candyman just hanging over the whole movie. So yeah, the bathroom scene I think is spectacular. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that scene, Knight?
I thought it was very well done. It was creepy. It was, you had the blood there, and I was just like, man, he's literally, look, everybody's on the menu. Okay. It doesn't matter if you're old
Yeah.
or young. These are kids. So
I know.
so I
Yeah.
thought that that type of brutality was just really, it was really intense. I really thought it was intense. But at the
Yep.
same time, like you said, Nia pulled back and let your
Yes.
imagination do a lot of the work. And
Yes.
listen, it is, and some folks had issues with that. And when I first saw it, I was like, wait a minute, what, where is it? Well, and so your mind gets conditioned a certain way. But again, guys, when you think about some of the best horror films of all time, or at least the ones that are thought of as such, if you think about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or if you think about Halloween or Black Christmas and things like that, even things like Elm Street, outside of the Tina kill, anyways, I mean, usually your mind is working up that gore and that intensity of a kill and so forth. So I think it was brave of Nia to do that, I think, because you could have easily just shown 1,000 gallons of blood and really made this lean into slasher territory. So cool stuff. Real quick in the chat too, as we start to wind down, Jack's heading out. Catch you later, Jack. Thanks so much for being here,
Yeah.
and appreciate May for putting the link in for the DVD. Very, very cool. And we had another question in here that I thought that was really interesting about, do we think, yeah, JPEG was saying, how's this compared to the other sequels, Farewell to the Flesh and Day of the Dead? This is hands and feet above
So much
those
better.
two. Yeah. This and it is no disrespect to Tony Todd, because Tony Todd is always money. But unfortunately, when they went into the sequel, they decided to change it into something that was so far removed from the original film. They really did want to go into slasher territory, you know,
Yes. Yes.
and I think that that was such a mistake, such a mistake. And obviously it showed in those two films, you know. So, yeah, it is what it is. Let's see. Brandon saying that the bathroom scene, I believe, is one of his favorite scenes.
It's a great
Um,
scene.
it is great. BTT saying the bathroom scene, you see Sherman's reflection in the paper towel dispenser. Yeah, the reflections, everything.
So
It was
good.
just awesome stuff, man. Gore saying I need to give this a rewatch. Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that this is really cool stuff. It is really cool stuff. Brandon saying, do you ever think that the hook is symbolic of a bee stinger? Absolutely. No doubt. There's no doubt about it. You look at the coloring, you look at Sherman's outfit, the hook like a stinger. Absolutely. I've always thought that was a really cool bridge between the character of Candyman and the hook and the bee. Absolutely. Let's see. I want to catch up to these guys. Yeah, and nice to see him as Candyman again. Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about that. So let's also touch upon, the fact that as he is totally losing his shit physically as well, it's time to go see mommy. And wow, if you want to talk about defying
Vampire. She's
nature,
a
we're talking
vampire.
30 years later, and Vanessa looks the same as she did in 1992.
Just watched the movie and she opened the door. I was like, did we flash back? Is it 92 again? What? This
Yes.
woman has just stopped in time.
Yes.
She is ageless.
Yes, it was absolutely crazy. So shout out to her. But she explained which some of us already knew, and for some of us were suspecting as we first saw this movie, that Anthony is the baby from the first movie. And okay, so boom, you've got that connection and it makes sense. It totally works within the story. And I really loved that. But she talks about how she moved away, from Cabrini Green to get him away, to save him. It all makes sense. She has this small scene, but I felt as though it was very powerful. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And again, the callbacks to the original, but not cheap callbacks.
No.
This has a direct connection to this woman's life and the life of her son, and now seeing how, and like he said, he found me, he finally found me, and it's like, it's chilling, it's absolutely chilling. But as we get into the finale and kind of the twist, and I saw someone in the chat say this, it was kind of like the Sartain twist.
It was a bit, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was, it was, but again, look, this little kid is having you know, tea and biscuits with the Candyman, okay, is gonna mess him up. I mean, look, this kid and this child actor did fantastic physical
He
work
was
here.
great.
The look
Mhm.
on
Yep.
the look in his eyes said
Mhm.
all that you needed to know. But we get to the finale and the twist of William, who basically is the villain, or is a villain of sorts. He
Yep.
feels justified, which of course
Mhm.
is what makes this interesting as well, because he looks at Candyman as an avenger of sorts, an
Yes.
avenger of
Mhm.
evil, and an avenger of the community, and saying that we need him. So he kidnaps Brianna, and obviously this whole movie was him kind of orchestrating or helping to orchestrate this transformation of Anthony. What did you think of this, Rachel? Because this is a huge part of not only the finale, but the film itself.
Yeah. I look, I remember when I first saw this film not really liking this ending initially. And I remember this was one of the issues I had with the film when I first came away. I remember thinking, oh, that came a little out of left field and it felt a
Hmm.
little bit rushed and garbled. But as I've rewatched the films and I've paid more attention to Burke as a character and more attention to Anthony descending into madness, I think that it does arrive at a place where you can understand Burke's like his motivations and you can understand how growing up in these projects watching Cabrini Green be gentrified and then turned into the ghetto and then gentrified again, watching the police brutality that surrounds him, watching all of this, you can understand why he would want to do this. It's
Hmm.
just that it's such a pity that it was Anthony, because Anthony is innocent in all of this. He's as innocent as he
Right.
was when he was the baby in the fire, and the fact that Burke has been waiting for him to turn him back into this monster is really quite sad. It almost feels
Yeah.
like Anthony never really escaped. He never really escaped the fire. Like
Hmm.
Helen thought that she saved him, but she never really did. And I just want to say quickly, with Anthony being the baby, I don't know if you remember, well, when they were doing the marketing for this film, they gave that away, and I really hated that
Yeah.
because yeah, so I think one of the trailers gave it away, and also Yaya
Hmm.
talked about it in a couple of interviews, because I remember thinking, no, if you had kept that secret, we would have all gone into the film going, hang on a second, Anthony, isn't that the name of the baby? And we all would have been watching the
Yes.
film going, hang on. And then we would have had the reveal, like when he goes to see his mum, the door open and you see Vanessa Williams, and we all would have been like, oh, it is. Whereas
Yes.
the marketing kind of took that away from us. It took that
Yes.
reveal away, and it would have just been so much better. But I mean, we've talked about this before. This is a big problem with a lot of modern trailers. They really like to. It's almost like they feel that if they don't give everything away, they won't bring the audience in. It's kind of
Yeah.
really annoying. So that
I
annoyed
agree.
me. But this climax, I have come to really appreciate, because I really think it ties together all the themes that have been running through the movie of police brutality, of where the Candymen came from, of the fact that they are all, Black men who have been, treated so badly, who have been beaten down, who have lost their voices. And it brings us to the moment that I love so much in this film and that I talk about in my video, which is where Brianna becomes the first person to kind of realize that you can weaponize Candyman. And I
Right.
think he also realizes that because Candyman is now Anthony, he won't hurt her. And I kind of like that their love story comes through a bit. Brianna is a character I have to say that I absolutely love. This girl is
Yeah.
taking no bullshit. Like as soon as
From
Anthony
anyone.
starts to like play all his red flags, she's like, oh no, I am out of here, dude. And
Smart.
again, I love her brother taking her back to like pick up her stuff, and he's all like, Anthony, it is Troy, we will be taking Brianna's things and leaving. And I'm just like, yes, so good. But what
Yeah.
I also love about Brianna is, even though she knows her worth and she knows enough to leave Anthony when he starts to display these red flags, she also knows Anthony enough to know that this isn't him and that something
Right.
else is going on. And that's what like urges her to seek out Burke, and how she ends up in this situation, because she does love Anthony and they've been together for a while. So she knows that he's not suddenly going to become this crazy person. So
Hmm.
Brianna, sorry, I went off on a bit of Brianna tangent. So Brianna, I think, is
It's okay.
such a great character. And yeah, I love her weaponizing Candyman Candyman at the end. It's just such a great conclusion to this movie of like Candyman's always going to exist, police brutality is always going to exist. Let's see if we can get these two to meet and see what happens. And it's just such
Right.
a great scene. But how did you feel about the finale when you first watched, and how do you feel now?
Well, I think when I first saw it, I thought it was interesting, and like you said, she was weaponizing Candyman, and I was like, okay, that's again, listen, if nothing else,
Mhm.
you got to appreciate the freshness of the idea.
Yes.
They
Mhm.
again, they could have just said, okay, let's do a movie. We got Tony Todd. Let's rip up a couple people, have a couple of monologues, and you're back. Candyman's back. Yay! We're cool. And I think that it would have been some coolness to that because I loved that man. I really,
Yeah.
really do have love for Tony Todd in this character.
Mhm.
But they chose to open up the mythology. They chose to go into, in my opinion, a more interesting avenue. And I thought that it was brave, and was it a successful choice? That I think that still remains to be seen. I think this is
Mm.
one of those films that as time goes on, we're gonna get to weigh this a little bit differently. I know that's the truth for me, and I'm man enough to admit that live because seriously, if you've been around like Eric and a couple people have been around long enough, Gore, when I talked about this 4 years ago, I definitely had a mixed feeling on it, but I'm so much more positive about it. And like I said, I watched it twice and I didn't have to because I'm good enough to remember details watching a film once, to
Yeah.
prep for a discussion. But I
Mhm.
watched it and I was like, you know what, I gotta watch that again, because I was invested in it. I was like, yeah, there's some good stuff in here and the choices that they made and so forth. But yeah, I think weaponizing Candyman was cool. I think it was cool when you have that moment where you see him and he's looking into the reflection of the vehicle and you see the different men, the different faces. That was a cool thing. The reflection, guys, is some cool shit. And again, some people are probably like, whatever. But I'm saying they're doing different stuff. We always
Yes.
we always bitch about we see the same old thing all the time as a
Mhm.
horror community. We do. I know I do. So like now, we have some films, this being just one small example of that, but we're seeing some different stuff. And I thought that was cool to see. So back then, I thought it was cool. I was a little mixed on it, but now it's like, okay, this whole idea of the hive, I'm digging it. It's different. And now it can set up so much in the future. The idea of all the bees around his face, I was like, man, okay, that is pretty damn cool. So this ending, um, I think it was appropriate. I saw someone up there earlier in the chat saying that one of the criticisms was that it was rushed at the end, and I think that there could be some fairness to that. I think we could
I
have,
get that.
yeah, we could have used another 10 minutes,
Yeah.
with this finale, fleshed that a little bit. And I don't know where I'll say I'm not going to say whether or not that was a situation of how they changed direction of the film because again originally Helen was going to be the main villain, or at least a bigger part of the story. So maybe when they took her out of the story and they decided to go in this direction, maybe the ending being rushed was just something that came out of that. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I don't know, but I do think that this was interesting. I do think it was interesting. Paul is saying the storyline was current to the times. I agree. Ty saying I wanted
Absolutely.
five. Yeah, I wanted 5 more
Yeah.
minutes to the ending. Yeah, I think I would say 10.
Yeah, another 5 to 10 minutes
Yeah,
would really flesh things out, I think, because that was another yeah, I remember that was another issue I had when I first saw it. I was like, "Oh, okay, well, that happened really fast." We had this really great build up, the movie was really well paced, and then all of a sudden we have this rushed ending where it's like, "Okay, he's Candyman now, we're gonna summon him, blah, blah, blah." And while I think it
yeah,
worked well, yeah, we could have used just a little bit more time just spent with that, maybe spent with Burke, just really just plump this scene up a little bit, and then it
yeah,
would probably make the ending just a little bit more impactful.
yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we can't end this discussion as we wind down. We can't end it without talking about maybe one of the biggest um, takeaways, and maybe the thing that might have divided the fans the most. I know it divided me, and so I definitely want to talk about it. And BTT, alluding to it here, people have to understand the torch had to be passed. We all love Tony, but he was older and he was sick, and of course, most people did not know, about his health, at the time and so forth. So obviously, you have to take that into account. But the fan in me, okay, when we get to the end and she sees Daniel, you know, the fan in me was just like, come on, we need more than 3 seconds, bro. Give us more than 3 seconds, and maybe a little bit more voice work if he was able to do that, which I'm going to assume that he was, and maybe again, this was a direct outcome of them changing the script around a bit, actually quite a bit, because it was going to be Helen that Anthony summoned, and it obviously Daniel or Tony as Daniel would have been tied more directly into the film. So again, maybe this was a direct outcome, but again, the fan in me, of course, I wanted more. And I remember when I saw this, and I looked over at Coriander, and I'm like, "But what? That's it? No, no!" Dude, I got so emotional. But again, I think that shows the power of the first film, the connection I have to the first film as a fan, the connection I have to Tony Todd, the connection I have to the character and what it represents, what it stands for, how important it is, for people of color and so forth. So I was coming from that perspective. Now, 4 years later, and I can step away from it, and kind of be more on the outside looking in. I understand a lot more. I still wanted a little bit more, but I understand. How about you? What did you think when you saw, Daniel?
Mm. So, like, similarly, the fan in me was like, just give me another 2 hours of Tony Todd. He could just stand there and read the phone book. I will watch it. Like, I
Yes.
love this man. Um, but so part of me when I finished the film, I was similar to you. I was like, really? That's it? That's all we're getting? That's all you're gonna give me of Tony Todd. Come on,
Right.
people. But in retrospect, and again, like we say, hindsight is 2020. In some movies, you need to absorb, you need to sit with, you need to, kind of let them process. I think that the way they used Tony in this movie was brilliant
Mhm.
because, as we've talked about, the legend is moving away from Daniel. He is still the source of it. He's still the heart of it, but this movie is so much about the other Candyman, about the Hive, about Anthony. So I thought that again, because it's so much about that and bringing to life like voices of the Black community, bringing this avenging spirit into Candyman and bringing all of these men together. So I think that having Brianna, when she finally sees Candyman, having her see the original, the
Mhm.
first, the one where it all started, and then, just the tell everyone. I've
Everyone.
talked about this before, but I had an actual physical reaction when that voice came on. I was because I didn't get to see this in the cinema, so I saw this at home with my husband, and we were lying on the bed, and I flinched, and Stephen was like, "Did you just do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it's Tony Todd, man. Like the voice, the voice." So like I like fully like just had this gut visceral reaction to that voice. But no, I
Yeah.
look. I would never complain about having lots of Tony Todd, but I also think that the way they used this final moment, this final impact, this final, you know, bit for Brianna to hear, I thought that was so well done. And I think the fact
Mhm.
that you go through the entire movie not seeing him to the point where you're starting to wonder, is he even going to appear? And then
Right.
bam, he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's here, but he's here to drive that final message home, to give you the
Mhm.
final wham moment of the film. And I just thought it was used so well. But similarly to you, when I first saw it, it was like, oh, really? That's it. That's it. That's all you're
Yeah.
going to give us. Really,
Mhm.
buddies? But I think, yeah,
Mhm.
in retrospect, it works really well for the ending. And
Yeah.
I love watching the film and knowing that that moment is coming and that we're going to
Yeah.
hear, that voice and we're going to see him. And it's like, yes, there he
Yeah.
is. So, yeah, really loved that.
Yeah, it like you said, it's like they held back throughout the whole movie, you know what I mean? And it works with the story of the character,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
so here's the good news for me
Mhm.
anyways as a fan. I don't know about you guys. Here's the good news for me because I'm so connected to the original film. But here's the good news. the choices that they made, even though they sidestepped the original idea for Helen to be the main villain and so forth. The good news is that what we saw, what it became, anyways, I think it worked. I think it
Mhm,
worked with the mythology. It worked with what was set up in the 92 film. It worked with
mhm,
what Candyman is, the whole supernatural aspect. Tony Todd as Daniel is still the source.
mhm.
Everything came from him. And now we're set up to do whatever we want if we
Yes.
want to. And I
Mhm.
and I hope they do. I really do because again, like we talked about when we talked about the original Candyman, this being a character of color and so connected to Tony Todd. I just think that it would be really cool to continue to honor that. And in this movie, I think they were able to honor him quite a bit. Yes, we wanted to see more of him, but it did work within the context of the film,
Yes,
to tell
absolutely.
everyone. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, baby. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So yeah, and BTT saying, yeah, the trance-like state that Brianna was in when Tony Todd appeared, just like Helen. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it, and it's almost like, and like I said, that's why I say that this was, it's kind of like a ghost story too, man, because everything from the beginning, you want to hear a ghost story, and it's like, yeah, and so it kind of came to life. The ghost story came to life, obviously for Anthony, but for Brianna as well because she wasn't a believer,
Exactly.
right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Just like Helen
Mhm.
wasn't a
Yep.
believer. So again,
Mhm.
all these levels. If you
It's
look,
so great.
if you wanna
Mhm.
look, if you don't wanna look,
So
that's
great.
fine.
Oh,
You're
I
missing
should
a
also mention, I absolutely love when her brother's boyfriend starts trying to, like, summon Candyman, and the brother's
yeah.
like, "Oh, no, 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 no. Black people don't need to be summoning shit." And I'm like, "Yeah, this dude knows what's up. This
He
dude is
does.
on the ball."
Yes, yes, he was very, very smart. So, as we wind down here and get ready to close it out, I just think that 4 years later, what I've learned about this film is that there was a lot of great stuff in it. I'm still absorbing it, which is so cool. I've seen
Yes.
so many horror movies since I was a little boy, and I've been fortunate enough to watch a lot of great horror films, but I've watched a lot of horror films that, they're okay, that was fun. Yeah, that was cool. And I may never watch them again, or maybe
Mm,
barely ever watch them. There was not much that I'm absorbing. This is a film just like the original, in a different way, of course. Okay, in a different way, of course. But this is a film like the original that I'm still absorbing. And that's kind of a cool thing that I'm still learning about it. And I'm not even talking about behind the scenes, which of course there's stuff about that, but I'm talking about the movie itself, the mythology and the possibilities. I think that for me as a fan, I'm that type of fan. That's very that's very intriguing. And so 4 years later, revisiting Candyman 2021, I'm fully on board. I'm fully on board. I can't remember. I don't think I did an actual score. I've never really been big into that. I've done it here and there over the years on the channel, but I think back then I might have said maybe a 6.5 out of 10, maybe something like that, which isn't bad, but it's just not at the level that I wanted it. I would say now I would definitely look more at like an 8, you know,
would
you know,
too. Mhm.
something
Very
like an
well
8,
made.
maybe even an 8.5, maybe, but I definitely see what they were trying to do, and I think it was some really cool stuff. So, um, that's where I'm at, Rachel. Any final thoughts for you as far as this revisit?
Just I really love this film. I think that's just what I'm gonna say. I just think it just I just like we've talked about here, I just love that it takes the urban legend from the original and reworks it into something that is so relevant and so modern and gets this really great social commentary into the film without it overpowering. And I've talked about this before. I truly hate the term elevated horror because to me, horror has always been elevated. It's always been able to look at social commentary, be a reflection of our time. Even the original Candyman was like that as well. And so I really
Mhm.
think that this film is one of the really great examples of how you can work a really relevant social commentary into a horror film and not have the social commentary overtake the horror film. It's all about working with the right components. And when you have a film that is about an oppressed black man and that is about, a black community and gentrification and all of that, it's just prime to turn it into, this modern fun urban horror ghost story. I think DaCosta's direction in this is fantastic. I absolutely love as well that she's getting more recognition because unfortunately back in the day, because Jordan Peele's name was attached to this, a lot of people thought this was a
Yeah.
Peele film. It's like, no, people, he's a producer, he's a co-writer, but this is
Right.
DaCosta's film, and her
Right.
direction is beautiful. Like I said, every shot in this film is almost like you could frame it and put it on your wall. I think that the actors are so great. I think Yahya Abdul-Mateen in particular is so good, so charismatic. I was saying to
Agreed.
my husband, I was like, see, they cast him because he's gorgeous as well. And we were losing Tony Todd, so we need another beautiful man to stare at. So I'm like, so they went to Yahya and they said, oh yeah, you're gonna work. Let's put you on the screen. So yeah, I think the actors are great. I think Tiona Paris, who plays Brianna, is so great as well. And yeah,
Yeah.
I just think that this, I think that people, similar to what we said, I think the first time you watch this, if you've only seen the original, like it's going to be a bit jarring. You do have to get used to the fact that it's a different take on the legend. But like you said, once you go away and you sit with it and you really start to let it absorb,
Yeah.
it just becomes so much greater. And there's so many different levels to this film.
Mhm.
Obviously, for me, the original will always be the best because it's just
Yes.
so beautiful. But I think that this is a really worthy sequel.
Mhm.
It is definitely a sequel
Yes.
that
Yep.
stands next to the original. So those are my final thoughts. Absolutely love it.
Very well said. And I agree. You know, it is a sequel. And again, like you said, yes, the original is still the top of the mountain. And but again, it's like, and that was a problem with the first two sequels, is that they tried to kind of go back to the well, you know,
Yeah.
Candyman,
Mhm.
you know, a young woman, there's an
Yes.
infatuation, they try to have a romance,
Mhm.
and they could never touch what
No.
Tony and Virginia did. They could
No.
never touch it. This film learned from that and said,
Yes.
you know what? We got a whole bunch of other stuff in this mythology
Mhm.
that we can mine.
Yes.
People may not be ready for it, but let's try it. And this is what we get, which it works in so many ways. You know, you do have these two characters that love each other, but it's
Mhm.
tied to Anthony as the baby from the original
Yes.
and building out this mythology of the hive. And
Mhm.
again, I think it was so well done, so underrated. I know there are a lot of fans of the film. Like back then when I was covering it, there are a lot of people. I mean, we had a lot of people that were showing love for Candyman, which I really loved that, and it was so awesome to see. But there were also people that were either mixed on it or had issues with it, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine because I did too. But 4 years later, I'm here to say live that I can see. I can see clearly now. The rain is gone. You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm at, and I'm going to continue to absorb this film. And I think that the possibilities are endless. I don't know what is going to happen with the franchise, but it is wide open, and I think that they did something that was very smart. Again, we know what's going on with Elm Street. I don't know how that's going to turn out. It's going to be tough. And I love Elm Street and I love Freddy Krueger and I love Robert Englund. This franchise figured a way to make the future very possible. So think about that, guys. That to me, that's one of the biggest things, you know. So as we start to wind down, Val is in the house. Hey, Val, hope that you are doing well. And if you haven't um, been here the whole time, this was a really fun one. This is a great discussion. And as always, I want to thank Rachel for taking the time to be here. And I know she's super passionate about Candyman. And I was so excited to be able to do this and kind of revisit this film. So thank you so much for being here, Rachel. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. This was a great discussion. I had a lot
Yeah.
of fun, and I actually think after we finish up, I'm probably gonna go rewatch this again.
Right? I'm telling you, man. When I decided to watch it the second time, I was like excited, you know, and that's a cool thing too. You know, all of us as horror film fans, you know, that's a cool feeling. But I was excited to watch it the second time because I was like, yeah, there's so much that I want to absorb. So, anyways, this was a lot of fun. You guys in the chat, if you haven't hit the like button, please do. It helps to support us. Leave some comments. Make sure that you're supporting Rachel on her channel. We've had the link in the chat. We've got it in the description and all over the channel. Rachel's been with us for quite a while, and we're so appreciative of that. So make sure you go and support her. If you haven't seen my latest Why You Hate video, I usually don't do this, and I really should. I've got to be smarter as a content creator. But guys, if you have not seen my latest Why You Hate, or if you haven't seen some of the latest episodes, please go check it out. I really work hard on those. It takes days to just do one episode. Days, and I'm talking 5 days, 6 days, and I'm trying to do it, squeeze it in, between life and work and not getting any sleep, like what happened today where I didn't get any sleep. So please check it out, guys. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully you guys will enjoy that. But we will catch you guys next time. Thank you so much. And as always, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.